First question, why? Why after 29 years of serving a community, rising to the office of chief in Lynchburg, did you decide to pick up and move your life and your family down here to Wilmington?
You know, I felt like I still had a little gas in the tank, so to speak. I'm a person that likes to stay busy and somebody that likes the opportunity to, improve processes. And, the Wilmington's a great place. I don't need to tell you, you've been here for a long time. Yes, and it's a place that offers a great place to live, offers a lot of amenities, and in researching not just the area but the department, some really great people here in the police department as well as the community, and felt like I could come here and hopefully make a difference. So,
how did you learn about the job opening here? Is there a police officer job posting website somewhere, or how did you learn about Wilmington?
There is one of those. I didn't learn through it that way. I had someone reach out to me and said, hey, this job just came open. Don't know if you've seen it yet or not. Thought you might be a good fit for it. And so started researching it a little bit. And the more I looked into it, the more I felt like my skill set could be hopefully a benefit here. And kind of put the application in, and the rest is history.
Well, what made you think you were a good fit? Yeah. What made you think that Chief Zuidema could be good for Wilmington?
I think a lot of similarities to the city I came from in Virginia. Geographically, almost identically the same size, about 50 square miles roughly. Certainly a bigger population here, a little bigger department, but a lot of the same challenges in the community, right? And demographics very similar to where I came from. College town there, college town here, and so I just felt like my almost 29 years there and the last 7 years there as a police chief would do me well here, and hopefully that'll be the case.
I saw an interview where you said the application process for this job was challenging because it had to be done confidentially. So you had to learn about Wilmington in a way that, oh, hi, what about Wilmington, but don't tell anybody I called. What was that process like? Yeah,
I was lucky that I knew one person here, not in the department here, but someone that had been in this area for a little over 20 years, was connected to law enforcement, and was able to give me kind of a an inside track a little bit, not just about the department but also about the area, and someone I had previously known, and so that was helpful, because you're right, it was a little challenging, right? Not being able to talk a lot about it a lot, and try and gather as much information as I could without people knowing I was trying to gather information.
Do you have to swear that person to secrecy?
I did, absolutely.
Buy you dinner when I get the job kind of thing?
Yeah, I owe probably dinner and lunch and a few other things, yeah.
In Wilmington, City Council picks the police chief, as opposed to many other municipalities where like a city manager might do it. So in the process, from what I learned, you interviewed with all of the city council members at one point in time. Can you share what kind of questions they asked you, what kind of questions you asked them? Because it's different than interviewing with a city manager. You have to talk to 7 different people.
Yeah, so definitely a very unique process. Obviously, the city charter here dictates that process in terms of the city council selecting the police chief. I won't speak to specific questions I
wouldn't
asked,
ask you to, but generality.
Generally, kind of want to know one, what my experience was, right, in dealing with different issues and challenges in law enforcement and in communities. I was hopefully able to, share that. I had questions for them as to what their priorities were, right, and how they saw, what success might look like for them, for their new police chief, whoever they ultimately picked. And I think, that although it was a very unique process in that it was the council that selected me and that I interviewed with, as opposed to a manager, I think it gave me a really good insight too that I might not have otherwise got into the community, right? 7 very different people, obviously, who obviously govern this city and make decisions on funding and other projects and programs. And so it gave me an opportunity to get kind of an inside track, for lack of better terms, into the lens that they were looking at, not just the city through, but also the WPD. So in that sense, it was advantageous, I think, for me to kind of understand where their priorities were and kind of what they wanted to accomplish.
Can you share what they said success might look like?
I think, building relationships and partnerships is a part of it. Not their words, but my words from what we talked about, and making sure that we are engaged with the community, right? And that's a big part of what I want to accomplish here, certainly, and making sure that we're operating as effectively and as efficiently as we can as a local police department.
How and when did you learn that you were the choice?
I can't tell you the specific day, but not too long after my final interview I had, I was notified that I was the choice, if we could obviously come to agreement on terms of employment, and so was certainly very excited about that, very humbled, quite honestly. I obviously spent a long time doing police work, almost 30 years, but to go kind of, for lack of better terms, blind into a community that didn't know a lot about, other than the one individual we spoke about, and to have a group of 7 people all agree that I was the person they wanted to try and lead the Wilmington Police Department. It was very humbling, and certainly honored that they would choose me, and certainly that they would support me in this role.
Were you out cutting the grass? Were you with the bowling friends and get a phone call? How did it work?
So when I got the phone call, I was actually at work at my previous job, and it was a little surreal, quite honestly. It was obviously I knew it was potential that could happen, but it was very much made that whole process come to life, so to speak. And so I was sitting at work, got the phone call, and was very excited about it.
You've been on the job now about a month. I know you've been in town a little bit longer, but on the job itself, what have you learned? Have you kept a little, I don't want to say checklist, but are you writing notes as you learn things as you go along?
Oh, definitely. No, I've been, I would say drinking from a fire hose, but that's probably more like a fire hydrant right now. Yeah. I've been meeting, I wanted to first meet with all my staff, so I would, first several weeks I spent going around meeting with different work groups and some of my senior command staff as well, individually, I've learned a lot about Wilmington PD. Police work is police work, but every department has kind of its own culture. And my challenge is to learn the culture here of Wilmington PD. And then, been meeting with other folks in the community, meeting with other city staff outside of the department. And my goal is to continue to do that. This is going to take several months to probably meet all the players, for lack of better terms. But what I think I've learned is that there are a lot of people within this department that are extremely dedicated to what they do here, that really believe in this department, and equally as important, believe in this community, and make a lot of sacrifices to ensure that the fine folks who live here as well as visit here are safe. And that goes across the city too. I think other city departments have had a chance to meet with, not all, but a lot of the department directors and some of the staff, and they're very committed to keeping this community safe. And from the folks that I've met in the community so far, they are, I think, excited as well that we can continue to partner with them. We can't do police work by ourselves. We've got to have that partnership in the community. We've got to build those relationships. So I really look forward to meeting a lot more folks and learning what their concerns are. And I tell them all, and I told my staff this as well. I need to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? And I need to know kind of where we land. I need to know, if we have any blind spots as a department, what those look like, so we can work on those. And we want to build this to be an even better, stronger police department and better and stronger community.
You have a BA in criminal justice, a master's in business administration. Was law enforcement on the radar for a young Ryan Zuidema in college or in high school?
Absolutely not. No, I went to college to be a stockbroker.
Really?
Yeah, I was going to be a stockbroker. That was, I just knew that's what I wanted to do, and went to college my first semester, and the financial stuff just didn't bear out so well for me, and I got to a point where I had to figure out what I was going to do. I have an older brother who was in law enforcement at the time. He'd been in law enforcement for a couple of years back where we lived in Western New York. And he said, "Hey, what are you doing this weekend?" And I said, basically trying to figure out life, right? I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm not going to be a stockbroker. Yeah. And he said, "Why don't you do a ride along with me?" And so I went.
Back in the days when you could do that, right?
Yeah. This was mid '90s, and I went and did a ride along with him, and I thought, like, wow, this is the coolest job in the world. You actually get paid to do this kind of thing, and changed my major to criminal justice, started taking classes, ended up doing an internship with Rochester, New York Police Department, and I graduated college in '96. 10 days later, I moved to Virginia, and 6 days after that, I started as a police officer there. So, yeah, it was definitely not on the radar by any means when I was a young guy, but just kind of fell in love with it and have been in love with it ever since.
Why are young men and women getting into the field now as opposed to when you got into it? Because law enforcement has changed just like everything else from the time you've started. Why are they getting into it now?
You know, it's definitely changed considerably, as you know, right? We've been through some challenging times, especially, you know, the last, 5 years or so. Mm-hmm. I think the folks that we see getting into it in today's day and age, like a lot of us, I think it's very much a calling. You can't have looked at what's happened in America in the last 5 years and said, "Oh, I just think I'll go do that because there's nothing better to do," right? We don't provide the best working conditions in law enforcement, right? We don't provide the best work schedules, mm-hmm. right? You're going to work long hours, you're going to work nights, holidays, weekends. You're going to have people say horrible, terrible things to you, right, and not treat you well. So I think folks that get into it, they're called to it, and I think they want to make a difference in their community, right? And this is. I had an old retired FBI agent, Ed Sulzbach was his name. He's since passed away, but he said that if you look at society as a high-rise building, right, and every floor has every different walk of life on that floor. Law enforcement's one of the only professions that gets off the elevator on every floor, right? And you get a chance to interact with every portion of society, right? And it's a job where you can truly see that you're making an impact, right? There's a lot of jobs where you hope you made an impact, or maybe 4 or 5 years down the road you might realize you did, but this is a job where you can come to work every day and tangibly see the impact that you make, and it's a great job. It really is, and we want to continue to encourage young men and women to get in, because people like you and I aren't going to be around forever, right? We still got a few more years in us, right?
A couple more, yeah.
But the reality is we need to be mentoring, developing, and bringing up that next generation so they can be sitting in my seat or sitting in your seat, and so we've got to help sell that to our young folks and help them understand that this is it's a job unlike any other. It can be very, very challenging, but it can also be very, very rewarding.
What makes a good police department in Ryan Zuidema's mind?
Yeah, so I think it's a department that does a really good job of balancing two things, right? It's balancing a partnering piece and a protecting piece, right? And that partnering piece is building those relationships in the community, right? Making sure that our folks know the officers that are working in their neighborhoods, that they know the officers that are responsible for covering their business or whatever it may be. And that's where we really make a lot of progress, is through those relationships, right? The other piece of that, the protecting piece, is keeping our communities safe, right? And we've got to balance both of those, and we got to make sure the overwhelming majority of any community it's made up of good people, right? There's a very small percentage of any community that is responsible for a disproportionate amount of crime, right? And so what we've got to do is we've got to make sure we focus on those individuals that are causing a lot of problems, right? And especially folks that are committing violent crime, because mm-hmm. no one wants violent crime in this community. We don't as a police department, and the good citizens of Wilmington don't either, right? So we've got to be very strategic in how we go about that, and that's where those partnerships come into play too, right? Because we can't be everywhere all the time, right? And if we can build that trust in the community, that is a huge piece of it, right? Building that trust with our community so they understand why we're there. Law enforcement historically has not always done a great job of explaining what we do and why we do it, right? We just assume that people understand that, and there's a lot of nuances to what we do, and a lot of times people gain their knowledge or understanding of law enforcement from watching television and movies or reading social media, which we all know is not terribly accurate most times, right? And so we want to make sure that we build that trust and we educate our community on what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we're doing it, and that helps us with that enforcement piece, but they've got to trust us.
You mentioned earlier you wanted to hear about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Have you heard about some of the things in Wilmington and the race-related issues that have happened in this community? There's a good bit in the African-American community that has a built-in distrust of the police department here. You've talked about building relationships. So how do you break down some of those distrusts and build relationships, specifically with those who may not, like you said, trust in the police department, not just here, but trust police department as a whole?
Right, yeah, so definitely did my research, you know, watched the documentary, Wilmington on Fire, right, and done the research on that piece of it, so understand that as much as someone from the outside can understand
Sure.
that, right, and you know, I've had a lot of conversations already with folks here around this issue, and you know, I think it really boils down to relationships and consistent relationships, right? You know, it's really easy for you or I to throw stones at each other if we don't know each other, if we don't have a relationship. It's much harder to do that if we actually have conversation, right? And you know, the key to that is, you know, unfortunately, we're living in a society and a time in America right now where whatever the topic is that comes up, whether it's race, whether it's fill in the blank, doesn't matter. It's almost like go to your corners, right?
Sure.
You pick your corner, I'll pick my corner. And the reality is that's the exact opposite way we need to approach it. Like, let's start with what can we agree on, right? And I would argue that anyone in this community could agree on we want a safe community, right? So let's start there and work backwards, right? Because if we start separate, we're never going to come together. We'll never meet that middle, right? So let's start in the middle with what can we agree on that we both believe, right? And then let's work backwards from there. And a lot of times, again, it gets back to that understanding of really sitting down with folks and understanding what they believe and why they believe it, right? Mm-hmm. And giving them a voice and letting them be heard, right? We may go into a community and take some type of approach to crime or approach to an individual that's committing a crime that we perceive to be X, right? And that community may perceive that to be very, very different, right? And so what we've got to do is have those conversations, have that dialogue, explain what we're doing, why we're doing it to the extent that we can, right? Mm-hmm. And allow those folks to explain to us how that makes them feel when those things happen, right? And I think a lot of times, again, not unique to Wilmington, right, that we just don't have those conversations. And I think the more we can build those relationships, we can start to address those issues, right? Because, you know, to ignore them, they're not gonna go away, right? We gotta just sit down and talk, right? And, you know, whether we're breaking bread or having a cup of coffee or whatever we're doing, just talk through this. I want people to know I'm Ryan, right? Yes, my title is Chief of Police, but I put my pants on the same way you do. At the end of the day, I have some of the same worries and concerns that you do, right? Mm-hmm. And that goes for everybody else in our community.
You talked earlier a little bit about culture. Earlier this year, there was a survey done, and a lot of the folks who worked in the Wilmington Police Department didn't have the nicest things to say about it. So again, how do you build a culture where some of these people who may have been despondent, may have been upset in the past, buy in to the new chief's culture?
Yeah, so I think...
is it more the relationship building?
It's definitely a big part of it, right? It's walking around and talking to people, right, is a big part of it. I like to focus on what I call the ABCs, right? Accountability, buy-in, you just mentioned that, right, and collaboration, right? And if we can focus on those three things, they're simple, they're easy to remember, all right? We need to set a standard, first and foremost, that is clearly articulated to our folks, that this is the standard that we're gonna have as Wilmington PD, right? Then we need to hold people accountable to that standard, right? They've gotta be bought in here and understand that I want them to be owners of this organization, not renters, right? A very big difference.
Yes, there is.
And then we gotta collaborate, and that collaboration first and foremost is internally within the department across different work groups, right? Because you know, we're a large department, we've got a lot of employees, and we got to make sure that we are collaborating internally. We need to collaborate with other city agencies, and then we also need to collaborate with our citizens, right? Whether that's an individual, it could be a business owner, it could be a nonprofit, a church, it could be any of those things, and that's how we're successful, right? And so it's getting everybody to understand where we're going as a department. I certainly need to understand the past, right? And I've tried to do as much research as I can, and I continue to talk to my staff about that. But we also need to focus on the future, right? We need to make sure everybody's kind of rowing the boat in the same direction and giving them a clear target of where we're heading.
You served as a public information officer for a little while
I did.
At the Lynchburg PD. And I heard you say in your farewell news conference, I'm grateful to have a group of local media representatives that are willing to partner with us when we need to be partnered with, and hold us accountable when we need to be held accountable, and have a good working relationship. How do you want the men and women of your department to deal with, and I'm not going to say media because media takes in a large swath. I'm talking the journalists and those people who are just like you, trying to, you protect the public, we inform the public.
Yeah, and it is exactly what you quoted me as saying, right? It's a partnership, right? That doesn't mean we always need to agree on everything, right? It doesn't mean that we're always both going to walk away completely happy with whatever the outcome is, right? But we're going to make sure that we treat each other with respect, right? We're going to make sure, first and foremost, the simplest thing we do is communicate, right? There are going to be times where we can't share certain things with the media or with the public, right? We just need to say that, right? Instead of not being communicative, right? At the end of the day, if you all call my staff, me, someone here to get information, minimally we owe you a response. Even if that response is to say, look, we're working on something right now, we'll hope to have something out later today, or we're going to do a press conference tomorrow, or whatever it may be, right? But we've got to have that relationship, because we rely on you just like you rely on us. You rely on us for information to inform the public. We rely on you as a conduit or a medium to help us inform the public, right? And you know, the day and ages, as you well know, I don't need to tell you this, of deadlines are long gone,
Oh yeah, there are
right?
not anymore.
Because it's all instantaneous, right? And you know, what we need to do is we need to be getting the basic information that we can, especially on a large scale incident, out as quickly as we can, right? So that you have at least the basics, right? Because otherwise what starts happening is, you know, social media starts taking off and people get spun up on information that's in most cases not either accurate at all or not completely accurate. So that partnership is really, really important. And you know, our folks need to understand that you all have a job to do, right? Just like we do. And a lot of times, at least initially, most of your folks, even your greenest reporters, right, are going to understand that they just need some basic information to get back to put a little splash out on the 6 o'clock news, or you know, on social media, whatever it may be. So that the relationship's really, really critical. And I hope what you'll find under my leadership here is that we're going to be very responsive to the media. I'm certainly going to make myself available to you all as much as I can. A lot going on. I'm certainly not going to be the guy talking to you about the traffic crash that happened, you know, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, right? But when we're dealing with bigger issues or bigger incidents, that's something that, you know, from time to time I'll certainly try to make myself available to, right? But that communication piece is huge, and it's us making sure that we know what you need and what you expect, and you making sure you know what we need and what we expect. And I think if we can have that mutual understanding, right? Because there's a lot of common ground there, right? There's certainly areas where you may want to do one thing, we may want to do another, and they're in conflict. But you know, at the end of the day, I say this all the time, you know, neither you nor I work for each other, right? But we need to work with each other, right? Because we all work, at the end of the day, we all work for the public, right? And so I think how we massage that relationship, and again, I hate to keep going back to the same thing, but it's built on trust, right? And if we can learn to trust each other and share information that we can when we can, it makes it easy. It doesn't need to be adversarial at all, right? Because at the end of the day, we're trying, in essence, to accomplish a lot of the same things.
One of the Lynchburg PD's annual reports, you said, community policing is a philosophy and an organizational strategy that promotes new partnership between citizens and their police, based on a premise that police and citizens must work together to identify, prioritize, and solve community concerns. Yet, we have seen and we have heard from investigators that they'll go in and they'll try to do some work, and then nobody wants to talk. Number one, how frustrating is that? Number two, how tough is that to establish those relationships, specifically in some of those neighborhoods where people are not going to want to talk?
Yeah, it's very, very challenging, and again, not unique to Wilmington by any means. You know, I've dealt with that in my previous department, and you deal with that across the country, right? There's a lot of different sayings for why people don't provide information, right? You know, we need to provide opportunities for them across a variety of ways to do that, right? We need to provide anonymous ways for them to do that, which they have here, right? We need to make sure that folks understand that the tiniest piece of information can always be important, right? And a lot of times we're building a puzzle, right? When we investigate these cases, and sometimes people have that information, so we need to have avenues for them to bring that forward, and that's a lot of times where, you know, traditionally it's, hey, either call the police department, tell us who you are, and give us the information, or do it through, you know, the anonymous line. Well, those are all great too, but some people aren't even comfortable with either of those because they don't trust, is that really anonymous, right? Again, it's a trust piece. So if we have built relationships in the community, right, especially where I've seen a lot of success in my previous life, was if we build those relationships in our religious community, right, with some of those religious leaders, a lot of these folks will be willing to go tell them things, right, and then that person can come to us if we have that trust built with them, right, and say, look, I'm not going to tell you who, where, what, but you know, the guy you're looking for is so-and-so, or the car you're looking for was seen at such and such place, right? So it's finding those bridges, for lack of better terms, to the community where we can engage those folks and build that trust there in hopes that they can then be that conduit that helps us get that information. But yeah, it's frustrating to folks, and that's where we also have to rely on technology some too, right? You know, to be able to be a witness to things when there aren't folks willing to come forward as witnesses, right? And so but we're going to constantly encourage folks to come forward with that information. And you know, what I like to do sometimes with folks, especially if it's a tragic incident, right, where we're talking about loss of life and people won't come forward, is, you know, if that was your son or your daughter or your parent or brother or sister, you know, and someone had information, would you want them to come forward, right? And I think the answer to that is obviously yes, right? And understanding that, you know, there's people that are fearful to do that because they fear retaliation, right? And again, that's where we need to make sure that we're, one, building the trust, and then two, we are making sure we get those folks who are basically terrorizing, you know, portions of our community and committing criminal acts, especially violent acts, off the street and locked away. So.
Last question for you, because I know you're busy. The mayor and a couple of members of council have mentioned your integrity as one of the reasons they selected you to be the new chief. Is that what you want this department to be known for under your leadership?
Yeah, so first and foremost, it's never about me. It's about us as a department, right? I'm the person that holds a seat in this department, but I'm one of more than 300 people that work here, right? And I want us to be known as a professional organization. I want us to be known as an organization that treats people correctly, fairly at all times, right? And an organization that holds itself to a high standard, right? You know, this is an organization that's been nationally accredited for a long, long time. I came from an organization that was also nationally accredited, right? So we're already held to very high standards in that sense. But, you know, we don't always do a great job of telling our own story, right? So one of the things I want to work on is us doing a better job and partnering again with folks like you and others of telling about the great work that we do here, because, you know, I can tell you that there are folks here that on probably a weekly basis, at least, I know of at least one, that take money out of their own wallet to buy food for some of the kids in this neighborhood who don't have food otherwise, right? I guarantee you there's officers here that have stopped at the end of a call and gone and bought an inflatable mattress for a family that didn't have a place to sleep on, right? And those are the kind of stories cops are not going to toot their own horn about, right? They're just going to go about their business and do that. But that's the other side of policing that usually doesn't get seen or doesn't get covered, right? And so we need to do a better job in that sense of telling our own story too, through a variety of mediums. But yeah, I want us to be known as a professional organization, an organization that this community can partner with to help make this an even greater place than it already is.
All right, Chief, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
Nice to get to know you, and welcome to Wilmington.
Thank you. I appreciate it.